So, how to be a monk? That's what this video is about. When you think about videos like I live like a monk or monk mode or why I live like a monk or all that stuff, the stuff I think about is like, I don't know, productivity or something or optimizing for work. And so you got to like be a monk to do that or whatever. That is not what I'm talking about when I talk about being a monk. Okay. So, the way that I conduct myself in life is for 32 years, up until this point, I have truly lived life as a monk. And when I mean a monk, I mean a monastic life. Okay. So, literally, picture like those dudes with the hoodies, like going around and saying nothing and just praying all day and having a contemplative order. You know, that's a monk, right? Um, I've realized that the way to become a monk or why being a monk is important is far greater than just like being productive or something. So I'd love to share with you just how I think about monk life, how it relates to me, and how it actually ultimately leads you to do some pretty incredible things in life. Um, but those incredible things are not the byproduct or benefit from it. They're just sort of the things that naturally happen, and then you can devote yourself closer and closer to this monk lifestyle. So, um, as I think about this, I think about four different sort of journeys or things that have come up in my life that all relate to this idea about being a monk. So, first, like the first one, just living life like a monk. You know, I do that. So, let me just talk about it on the surface first. Okay, so again, usually when you see videos like, okay, how to be a monk or all this stuff, it's usually, again, like some entrepreneur tech person talking about productivity or something or like focus or something. That's not what I mean. Um, I'm truly meaning like a monastic lifestyle. So I was curious about this very recently after talking to a very good friend of mine. He is an expert at momentum and focus and stuff like this. He's actually a client of mine, incredible entrepreneur as well. And we had a really fantastic conversation. He said, "You know, Blake, you've seemed to live your life as a contemplative or as a monk or something like this, and I think that's the secret as to why you and I are able to connect so much." And so, I was thinking back on this, going, "My goodness, is that true?" And then I just started going, "Oh my goodness, it's true." I started looking back at my childhood all to this point, and for 27 years, I've done Okinawan style Goju-Ryu martial arts multiple times a week, over and over again. And that's not a sport at that point. It becomes a way of life. You know, walking into the dojo, bowing, respect, the awareness over what my body's doing, the training behind that, how it's isolated. It's not like football or something where you have to like collaborate with the team. It's just yourself. And it's a journey that you step forth in, right? You know, and doing that, my parents told me recently, we never had to discipline you because that sort of did it. And I remember there were times where I would not do well in school or something, and my sensei would pull me aside and say, "I heard you didn't, you're not doing well in school. What's going on?" And that's all that it took for me to get right back online. That is one tiny little portion of this like monk thing, and of course I'll flesh this out a bit, but I realize not many human beings stick themselves to or I guess submit themselves to something like a practice of martial arts for 27 years and devote themselves to the respect and journey that requires, right? And I think that's just ingrained in me now to where I look for all these other surface things of like monkhood, if you will, and I go, "Oh my goodness, there's a ton." I look at my decade or so as a full-time music producer. I was in the post-production world for so long as well. I literally was sitting in something called an anechoic chamber. You can like Google that. It's essentially where you walk into the room and all the frequencies are uh, gone, basically. Like it's just dead. It's a dead room, and you can like hear your heartbeat. That room became a sanctuary for me. And I mean that term very intentionally. It became a sanctuary because the hustle and bustle of life really got to me. So sitting in that room, just quietly being able to listen to my blood flow was very calming for me. But what it did was it put me in an environment where I could hear frequencies that I was producing come through the speakers accurately. So I would be fine tuning my ear for a very long time. I'm talking 10 to 12 hours a day for every day, for a decade. That's kind of was my life. That combined with martial arts practice, my level of awareness and contemplation and hearing and seeing things, basically the sensory world, was totally elevated, probably more than the average human being. But it was my job to hear these frequencies, manipulate the frequencies, and then send it back to a client. And I got very good at that. Built an entire company like around that skill set, right? So that was another sort of check, like, okay, that's very interesting. But one thing that I'm realizing is there were some times in sessions where people would come in for whatever reason to hear what I was doing. It always bothered me because I could never focus. But they'd come in and sit at the back couch or whatever. When they walked in, I was so fine-tuned to the frequencies in the room and so forth, and hearing all that stuff, that I once spoke with this like OCD person, and they're like, "You have sensory processing disorder or something, dude." And I guarantee you it's because of this. My heightened level of awareness of my frequencies and everything around me. But besides the point, when somebody would walk in, I would feel their energy, like how it would disrupt the room, and it would be dark or heavy or good or calm. Things that I would never been able to feel if I wasn't tuning myself to that room 24/7. So, man, that really got to me. So, okay, let's like recap. I had that. I had the martial arts stuff, right? And then I'm like, oh wait, there's more to it than that. One thing about me is I've never, being in the music world, playing at many gigs, going to many festivals, all that stuff, being around music and music producers and musicians all the time, I've never to this day done any drugs or anything. No weed, no nothing. Nothing. I mean, nothing. I mean, if I get a headache, I won't even take ibuprofen. Maybe, right? But I've realized, like, wait a second, I've never done any drugs or anything. Like, literally nothing. Whatever you can think of, nothing. Which leads me to my next point. I've never had a sip of alcohol. Not once. Not even communion wine. There's many reasons for that, which will be at another video. But that's pretty abnormal, I think, too. So I've devoted my life to like basically contemplative order or like somewhat of a monastic practice. And it goes even further. I've also recently started only eating like meat, basically. So like steaks. So that's basically all I eat, just steaks and salt, maybe some eggs, stuff like that. I'm noticing a massive transformation in like my thinking because of that. Okay, why am I bringing all this up? Okay, again, the way most people look at this is, well, if you're going to be a high performer, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, if you're going to be a boss, if you're going to be a leader, if you're going to be whatever, okay? If you want to build something incredible, build a $100 million company, you need focus, you need all this stuff. You need to cut out things, you not use your phone and not drink alcohol. All of the normal productive stuff that people tell you you're supposed to do, I've done it times 100. I mean, have you considered, not watching TV? I don't have one. I don't know what TV is. Have you considered not drinking? I've never had alcohol in my life. Have you considered cutting out carbs? I only eat steak. Have you considered meditating in the morning? I meditate like 3 times a week very, very intensely in my martial arts. Have you considered physical exercise? I do that. Have you considered, whatever? Have you considered tuning into the awareness of your surroundings? I was in an anechoic chamber for 10 years. I've done all that. I can tell you, with certainty that the way people show up in life is they look to all those tools as those tools to usually face some sort of challenge or problem in life. What I see a lot is, okay, to increase productivity, to be more effective, to be a good leader, to build something incredible. But I've never looked at those ways of living as the channel or the means in order to do something great. I've looked at that as a means and ends in and of themselves. Whereas if all that I did every single day in life was just practice these things, read all the time, tune my awareness to where I feel and see every little thing in my life, and that every single second becomes incredibly useful to me. No alcohol, no drugs, only eating meat, the martial arts thing, the sensitivity thing, for me, that's like a practice. And if that's all that I had, then that would be enough, basically. Now, to take it a step further, usually when you hear of monkhood, in the sort of surface level entrepreneur space, it's just like focus or productivity stuff we talked about before. But to be a true monk, the thing I've found is I'm not striving for contemplative living. I'm not striving for productivity. I'm not striving for enjoyment. I'm not striving for discovery. I'm not striving for calmness. I'm not striving for anything like this. I'm striving for holiness. Okay, what do I mean by this? You can't just devote yourself to a life's practice of meditation, of contemplation, of abstinence, whatever it may be, and go, this is my incredibly powerful tool so I can learn more about myself and ultimately do a lot of good in the world. To me, it falls short. What I'm striving for is through that practice, through that journey, I could ultimately have my character shifted, that I could strive towards holiness, so I could strive towards purity, so that my soul may be cleansed through that process. When that happens, by the way, and I've seen this, you become a light to individuals. People want to understand what's going on there. There's a power within you. Those byproducts that come from that holiness, if you will, here I am, I'm super holy, you're not. That's not what I'm trying to say. But those byproducts, they're inevitable. And the constant tension for me is because of those inevitable byproducts, I often look at those and I'm tempted with, well, therefore, I strive to enter this practice to gain the benefit of these, the byproduct of this. But I'm constantly saying, no. Those byproducts are just byproducts. They're not the thing in and of themselves. The strive for some sort of religious center to deepen my faith, to deepen the holiness side of things, is the pursuit. And a strong contemplative order, a monastic life, is the way to get there, or at least for me it is. Now, having said all that, there's another sort of layer to the monastic life that I've found, which is this adoration and contemplative order through a deep religious practice of mine, okay? I can go into this another time, but there are deep layers of insight, deep layers of contemplation, deep layers of connecting myself to, obviously my claim would be someone much higher than myself. That is the best pursuit you can have in life. It's so interesting at the very least. But all the business stuff, all of the wealth generating stuff, all the fun, all this other stuff that people are trying to grab and attach themselves to, they become so incredibly two-dimensional to where you can think a little bit more creatively about those endeavors. if you commit yourself to a life of contemplative order. Okay. Now, what does this have to do with anything that I'm doing every day? Well, I've committed myself to that sort of monastic contemplative order, and I'm probably going to double down on that. How does this show up? What's the fruit of this? What's the benefit of this? They're not the means and the ends within and of themselves. They're just byproducts. But how does it transform how you show up? I'll tell you. Okay. The second thing that comes to mind is this idea of collaboration versus isolation. Okay. In the contemplative monastic life that I'm claiming that I have, it's a very isolated world. It's a contemplative one. It's isolated. It's a journey I must go through by myself. It's one that I devote myself to. It's an increasing amount of awareness. It's me, myself, and I, right? Fine. The difference, though, is a monk will commit themselves to this, and usually the outpouring of how it affects the world is usually through some sort of cosmic realm of like prayer or something, or somebody on this earth has to fight back the evils of this world, and so let's have 200 people commit themselves entirely to prayer, and that will sort of do the cosmic justice thing. I laugh at that because I look at that as like, my goodness, I don't think I'll ever be there. I think myself much more integrated into the world, if you will, much more integrated into my work, much more integrated into affecting the lives of the people around me. And because I've chosen to live a contemplative monastic life isolated from the world and bridge the gap from that to impact and collaborate with others, I've seen that if I show up in an isolated way in my work and the people that I'm affecting or trying to inspire or help, it'll fall short. What I'm seeing is the opposite to be true, is as I'm becoming more and more of a monastic individual, if you will, the way that I show up in work is not isolated. It's through collaboration. Now, I will share this story in by way of example. I was sharing openly about what I was thinking about doing for our company, for college, which is education through entrepreneurship, only focusing on mastery of the craft, making substantial amount of income doing that, et cetera, et cetera. I was speaking very openly about some of my plans for college, and a few close members who are part of this community, who are all crushing it, doing incredible things on their own right, asked me, where are the needs? What's the help? What needs to be done? And so I said, you know what? I'm just going to share these with my clients, with my members. And so I said, I just really went for it. And here's what I want to do with the front end, and I'm thinking about this and all this, and I'll go into all this later in this video. But one of those pieces was, I've always been a director, a producer, an owner, if you will. But in one way, I've, especially in the production world too, I've always produced other people. I've always been on the other side of the glass. Even with my business, the team members usually are the activators, are the organizational powerhouse. I'm, I guess, visionary owner, type person. Producer, director is a much better term. But I said, with one sort of content thing, I think this is a way that I can be the artist, not the producer. And if I had a team of people that could come alongside me and produce me, I would just be thrilled. I would be absolutely thrilled. And I'd love to release all of our content inside of our engagements, free, paid, whatever, into the world, come up with incredible ways to pose it, and build a catalog. I mean, we've got hundreds, if not thousands of hours of content by this point that we can just share openly with the world, and it can help so many people. I'd love to, somebody could do that. And I said, yeah, but I'm not going to do that because I don't need to do that, whatever. And there's a few team members that said, we would love to do that. Would absolutely love to do that. And what ended up happening was, I said, okay, fine. I'm going to email those individuals that expressed interest. One was fantastic at LinkedIn. One was great at YouTube, great at TikTok, all these, but incredible individuals. They're clients of mine. And I called a meeting and I said, all right, guys, I need to find a way to make this work for everybody. I don't know what that looks like, but I do know that there's something we need to do with this brand, and I want to get this out here, and you seem to be the best people for it. So I'm putting you together, and I said it. I said, I want to be the artist here. I need somebody else to produce. And you know what? By the end of that meeting, there were so many incredible ideas. There was so much energy. It got to the point where they said, Blake, it's best that you leave because you're holding us back from what we want to do. I think it's abundantly clear that as soon as you interject yourself, it's limiting the potential of what we can do. Like, leave. So I left the meeting, and then it blew up, and they started snowballing, started a Slack channel, and it looks like they're going to go about it. And I said, guys, I'd love to find a way to where this makes sense for all of you as well. How can we do this? And there was so much love and collaboration that we found ways to go, okay, there's a way that this makes sense for everybody. And I'm going, my goodness, if I didn't have security in my isolated, contemplative, monastic life, then I wouldn't have had the courage or bravery to express openly some of these needs that we had that I wanted to do. And it wouldn't have come to fruition in the way that it came before. Now, I don't know if anything's going to come about that. I'm sure it will, but I share that with you because as I see my contemplative monastic life, as we'll call this, deepening, the way that I'm going to express that is through, in my work and in my friendships and relationships, is just an outpouring of collaboration. That if each of those individuals that I'm collaborating with has a deep contemplative order about themselves, somewhat of a disciplined, mastery over themselves in some way, and even better, a call to purity, holiness, whatever it may be, goodness in the world. Wow, imagine if those individuals put together, collaborated on efforts. Oh my goodness, the impact it would have. My goodness, that's what I'm excited about. That's all I want to do. That's what I'm trying to say. So it's interesting. An isolated and contemplative monastic life leads to magnetic collaboration. Why? Because I become a leader. And that type of leadership is magnetic, and other leaders will embody that as well. And you can change the world with that energy. So I'm all about that. Collaboration over isolation. The third thing that's running through my mind about all this is, I kind of alluded to it, is sharing openly. Okay. Now, in our highest paid engagement in the company that I have, people have paid lots of money to be there. And I'm sort of there to facilitate, push, encourage, provide resource, et cetera, to these entrepreneurs, multi-seven-figure entrepreneurs who either want to exit the business, sell their business, or just find alignment and enjoyment or leverage in it, and curate a community around this subject matter to completely change the traditional academia space. I mean, just actually to kind of obliterate it, provide an alternative education for every human being in the world through these leaders. It's a deep passion of mine. But okay, they paid a lot of money to be there. They have, in-person onboarding with me. It's an incredibly elevated engagement. Some badass killers are there. All right. Now, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on YouTube. Oh well, whatever. They're incredible. One of them said the same thing that I just mentioned here, but they said, Blake, would you be able to share openly what you're thinking through with college, with your business? I would love to know. And I said, I don't think that's what's valuable to you guys. You guys have paid a lot of money. We're here. I've done all these great things, supposedly. I have the roadmap. I've got the cheat code. I've got all the wisdom. I've got the SOPs. Whatever you need, I got it. And one of them said, do you know where your value is, dude? Like, do you think that's your value? And I said, yeah, I think so. And one of them said, why don't you do this? Why don't you tell us, your highest paid members, where you think your value is, or at least where you think we think your value is, and we'll tell you if you're right or not. I said, all right, sounds good. I said, guys, I think you think my value is in that I've started, built, scaled, exited, a multi 7-figure education business. It's very rare to do that. I know how to build teams. I know how to collaborate, all this. And I started saying all these things. And I even went further to say, and I'm pretty sure you guys would like sort of shortcuts or cheat codes or the nitty gritty processes of how that is. And as I was saying it, they were all sort of grinning, and I'm like, oh goodness, I should be cringing right now. And I said, is that not it? And they were all unequivocally, dude, you could not be more wrong. You are so wrong. So wrong. And I'm like, what? Then where's my value? What's going on here? And I just sit back and I said, guys, how am I wrong here? And I was taking notes. I have a yellow notepad here and I was taking notes. I wrote on top, how wrong was I on my true value? ! Underlined. And I just listened. Where is my value? I heard things like, you can see things that I can't see. You give me permission to be myself. You give me permission to think openly. Your ability to think through things is incredibly important. I trust you because I feel understood by you, and all of these qualitative things that I thought were, as one member said, party favors. And everybody said, no, that's the value. In fact, one individual said, you could charge, $250,000 to one individual for a short amount of time just for that, and it would be a steal. And I said, my goodness, I was wrong. And why do I say all this? I was afraid to share with them and get all that insight. Why? And I told them this. I said, because I'm afraid that if I share with you my insight, if I share with you how I'm thinking about things, if I share with you the models and the business frameworks and so forth, that's not where the value is. That really the value is in all this stuff that I just told you. I said, no. You sharing openly and allowing us to express things and showing that you're human and et cetera, that's where the value is. We want to hear it. And so we started with this exercise. What's the plan for college? What are you going to do? And so forth. I said, I'm feeling the fear. I feel like I'm just going to share it and you'll just copy it and do some weird version of your business. Then I immediately thought, I'm not a marketer marketing to marketers. Usually in this space, this entrepreneur education space, it's some dude has figured out a way to make $1 million a month or $100,000 a month. And it's great. You only work a few hours a week. And, I love this life. And all you need are the frameworks. And if you want to do this too, then send me your info and then I can send you the cheat sheet, and there's no sales call. You just jump on and basically it's just this a marketing model, and you market that to another marketer, and then they take that and then they market that to another marketer, and it's just this synthetic weird feedback loop. And I thought to myself, that's not what the heck I'm doing. The model that I'm doing has nothing to do with their model, because the whole entire engagement is not based off of a particular model. We're transforming education, as we know, in many different ways through entrepreneurship, through education, right? And it's a fundamental principle of mastery that these individuals have. They're not just a bunch of silly marketers. And as I was saying it, I'm going, I can share openly this model because they're not here to copy things. That's not why they're here. They're here for this other stuff. So I share it openly, which I'll share with you soon. And so, that's why I was afraid, because I'm afraid they'd copy. The second is, guys, if I share with you openly about what I'm going through, what I'm thinking through, I could be wrong. I say, here's the plan. Boom. It doesn't come to fruition. Here I am saying things, not doing things. The third thing, which really got me, was I was outside of the scope of work. I said, that's not why you guys are paid to be here. You want all these tips and tools and tricks and so forth. They said, no. This is very much in the scope of work. Hearing you think through how you're going through things right now, we're experts. We're badasses. We can intuit the learnings from you sharing. And as you share and as you're more open, and even though you could be wrong, and you share why you're afraid of sharing these things, it gives us permission to do the same. And if you get a group of awesome excellent 7+ figure entrepreneurs who are sharing that openly, not just sharing the best marketing frameworks or any of that crap. It elevates the conversation and dialogue and experience, and so much GDP value is created in the world. Why am I even saying all this? Because I guarantee you, I would have not had the courage, bravery, willpower, whatever, to show up that way if I didn't have a contemplative monastic life at home, isolated. It extends even further. It gets me thinking about this last thing I want to bring up, which is this educational entrepreneurship fund that I'm trying to create. Now, I could be dead wrong about this. I don't know where it's going to go. We're experimenting it. We'll see what happens. I've never run a hedge fund before. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But rooting myself in my deep practices, my contemplative order, my monastic life, if you will, and collaborating with other individuals and sharing openly about these individuals, with these individuals, about everything I'm going through. In order for me to do that, I need to be, again, rooted in this monk life, okay? To be so incredibly aware of every single tiny instance in my life to where my soul, my character, my alleged wisdom, my holiness, if you will, all of that needs to actually stand and not just be BS. It needs to actually be rooted in something and can withstand anything. Given that and the roots underneath that, a tiny leaf has come up from the seed of contemplation, which is there's most likely an educational fund that we'll create through this company. And I'd like to share with you something that's come from my contemplation, from sharing, from collaborating, a snowball effect of living a monastic contemplative order, which is all of this leads to a vision for our company that I could have never literally dreamed of, stolen, copied, anything. Now, I'm sure there's people who have tried this, but it came from within. It came from all of this stuff, okay? Which is this. We've got 2 engagements right now in our college ecosystem, okay? What's the big vision? What's the mission? What's the purpose? There's something fundamentally wrong with education. I've seen this firsthand. You know, I graduated high school early, skipped college, went straight to being a music producer, started an online education business, sold it. Now I've started my own university, and I'm very passionate about education and how right now the educational system, it's not working. You have government funded and government backed debt that you give to a vulnerable 18-year-old who is about to enter life, and they rack up $200,000 of debt, worst case scenario, right? I've heard more, to go to a 4-year university and possibly more to get an education, then go into the world to basically be a cog in the machine, to make a lot of taxable income, but then submit yourself to a life of no agency. I think it's deeply wrong. Yet the promise, and by the way, that's best case scenario. The promise, however, is if you go through that traditional academic route, you will have a life of freedom and agency and expertise and income, et cetera, et cetera. My goodness, how wrong that is. I've seen it firsthand. If you devote yourself to a specific trade, or even better, a contemplative monastic life's practice, your own curiosities, your own skill sets, your own, world will be created. And you can share this with others. And other people will want to be a part of it. You could make a fantastic income for yourself and provide true alternative education for individuals seeking a better life. It's education through entrepreneurship, or entrepreneurship through education, whichever way you want to look at it. That's the life's passion. That's the deep life's passion of this company we started college. Now, with that mission, with that vision, we've accumulated, about 100 incredible experts all over the world, literally all over the world, okay? Some of which are in incubation right now in our company. They're being brought up to build sustainable, really alternative education businesses to the world and aligning themselves so that they feel freedom, they feel alignment, they feel like what they're building is long lasting. It's not just another course or any marketing framework, blah, 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 blah. It's actually something sustainable. The way we're doing that is to survive that journey. You cannot copy and paste the marketing framework. You have to enter in to a deep life's practice and sniper focus tuned awareness to what's happening inside your membership paid engagement, so that you can clearly articulate that value to the marketplace, so that it transcends all the marketing frameworks and crap, right? That's what's going on there. Now, those individuals have paid to be there, and they're making money doing it, and they're enjoying their lives, blah, 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 right? Super awesome stuff. Then there's a group of individuals, like I mentioned, doing multiple seven figures, et cetera, who are operating at a higher level, right? There's deeper dialogue. We're sharing more. We get more interaction, a little bit more speed and collaboration, et cetera, right? That's fantastic as well. However, both of those pools of individuals in this ecosystem, incredible value is given. It's way too inexpensive for what it is. That's fine with me. I don't care. What I've noticed is that the collaboration in this monastic life that I've lived, I think, and the deep introspection there has allowed me to show up differently there to where everybody else is showing up differently there. I thought to myself, well, there's a lot of energy here. There's a lot of power here. How can we incentivize a collective mind, if you will, or a collaborative mind, if you will, where if we go deeper into our contemplation, if we go deeper into our skill set, we stay away from the marketing frameworks and just go deeper into the practices that we have. We share those practices with one another. It will translate to profits. It will translate into revenue. It will translate into more aligned revenue. That pool of people is going to be so wealthy in a holistic way, in their health, in their life's practice, in money, et cetera, time, freedom, blah, 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 right? It's going to permeate throughout their members of their communities and their education. It's going to change the world. And I figured to myself, well, how do we incentivize this collaborative mind? So what I'm thinking is, what if we start with some of our best top, performing members, collaborators, and I go deeper with them there, more in an incarnational way, where I'm really in what they're doing. And we're going deeper and deeper and deeper in a holistic way, not just looking at spreadsheets, but really going deeper into their business or life practices, et cetera, et cetera. Aligning incentive through sales, right? A small portion of their sales goes into our ecosystem, our college ecosystem. And now what happens is I'm incentivized to grow with them, and they're incentivized to grow with me, et cetera, and it's a feedback loop. That's sort of phase one, I think. It allows for income to be generated for the company that doesn't allow me to go crazy on the front end to bring in thousands of people into some course thing, but it allows scale this way, and it pays for all the learnings, all the team members, all the leadership that could be dialed in on the more front end engagements. What an incredible vision. Now, phase two, maybe, and I could be dead wrong about this, is, my goodness, what if multiple people were in that, and that fund started accumulating? I wonder if there's a world, and I don't know how to engineer this right now, but I wonder if there's a world where people have some sort of stake in that, or they get distributions based off of that. Now, people will share ideas and collaborate, and the things they're going to be sharing are not, here's what ad is working for me, and here are my frameworks that's working, and here are the email tricks that screw marketing, right? It's none of that crap. It's, here are the deep life practices that I've devoted to myself. And as we're doing it together, we are all leveling up as individuals, as human beings, as leaders, which ultimately then just pushes out into our companies. It will create more revenue and more wealth and more aligned wealth. Why wouldn't you share what's, quote, working? And instead of those things working, like ads and stuff like that, it's what's working is I've devoted myself to this life practice and this contemplative order, whatever, all these things. Sharing those ideas, if we're all incentivized, we will be sharing more and more and more, and it'll snowball, and that person's business will skyrocket. And this person's lack of alignment will be aligned because we figured out how to bring them into alignment. And we're just doing everything for one another. And a small portion of their business goes into this fund. And as people get more aligned, sharing these ideas, operating at this high level, more contemplative order, et cetera, you're incentivized because maybe you have a distribution from that pool of money of the collective business so that it pays you back, or that you get some sort of stake long term, or I don't know. We'll have to figure it out. But I see that as a massive snowball effect. And then the collective mind can then share with all the other individuals who are being in incubation period, et cetera, et cetera. We can share these learnings with the world. My goodness, what a cool vision. That's what I'm excited about. Don't ask me how or when that's going to happen, but we'll figure it out. The point is this. I could have never just copied or dreamed up that vision, and I'm sure there's somebody doing something like that. And, I don't care to bother about copying some framework. I just know that there's something here. And it all started and stemmed with a contemplative monastic life. I'm excited for the future in this regard. These are the things I'm thinking about. And if you were to remove the queen from the chessboard, that queen would be a monk's life. That's really what I've devoted myself to. If you remove it, all of it falls apart. All of it. You might have your own version of this. I would encourage you to think deeper about what this looks like for you, about what this world looks like. If you're still, at the very least, if you're still eating junk food and, drinking alcohol all the time and whatever, dude, stop that. Have some self-discipline. Because when you run into a month that's not as profitable, or you had a bad sales call, you're going to crumble. You're going to be very shallow. And I guarantee you, as you show up on YouTube or something, what's going to happen 2024, 2025, 2026, all this in the next 5 years, you'll see that the frameworky YouTube info crap will not be rewarded anymore. And people with depth and a contemplative order, and people who are incredibly complex in their interior life and are able to communicate those complex things very simply, will be rewarded. I guarantee you. You're starting to see it. Because people are showing up and they're realizing this. And as they show up to YouTube differently, the only thing they can muster up is authenticity. I'm just going to break down the barriers of this. I'm just going to be authentic. I'm just going to talk with you. What they've actually revealed to themselves, to the world and to themselves, is that there's not much depth there. It's very shallow. Nothing there. Now, I'm not just coming down on those individuals, but what I am saying is there's a better way. What if you were just an interesting human being? What if you did have some depth? What if you did have some character? More importantly, what if you had virtues and holiness and purity and a depth of your individual self, right? That stands the test of time. What if that was shared with the world? What could happen? I guarantee you'll be rewarded for that in the long haul. But here's the best part. The rewards that come from that are nothing. Nothing compared to the submission of the contemplative order of the life itself. That's the reward. The journey is the reward. That's how to be a monk. See you in the next one.